Members, you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Good morning, guys. Good morning. I'd like to call the meeting for the Oxnard City Council Public Works Transportation Committee to order. We're starting a bit late because there were some very important matters on the finance and governance, and we're a bit over, so 11:11. I want to read the statement. The meeting is held pursuant to the State Emergency Services Act, the Governor's Emergency Declaration of the Governor's Executive Order number N-29-20 to allow members of the City Council or staff to participate via teleconference. Pursuant to the Ventura County Public Health Officer's Order and the Governor's Executive Order N-33-20, all city buildings are temporarily closed to the public. The public is encouraged to view the meeting from home on the city's website at oxnard.org/city-meetings. Spectrum Channel 10, Frontier Channel 35, or YouTube at youtube.com/Oxnard News. Video recordings are typically available online immediately following the meeting. The public may provide comments to the City Council via email at cityclerk@oxnard.org or no later than 8 a.m. on the day of the meeting. Please identify the committee name, meeting date, and agenda item in the email subject line. A telephone option for public comments is also available at this time due to the state of California's quote, stay at home, end quote, order. Requests to speak must be submitted no later than 8 a.m. on the day of the meeting. Use the form on the city's website to submit your request, oxnard.org/city-meetings, or call the city clerk's office at 805-385-7803, or email your request to cityclerk@oxnard.org. May we take the roll call and certify the posting of the agenda. And Mayor, could you lead us in the flag salute, please?
Member Flynn.
Present.
Member McDonald.
Here.
Chair Perrello.
Chair here. And I just want to say that my screen is continually showing some circle and it says waiting, waiting. I don't know if I've done something wrong again, but okay. Mayor, can you lead us in the flag salute? And
Could I just
as we
say really quickly, we have a quorum. The agenda for the meeting was posted on December 2nd.
Okay, and just a moment of silence for, again, it's December, Pearl Harbor Day. And I'd just like to add something else. A moment of silence for anybody that's ever entered into a marriage. Some work out, some don't. But those are major leaps of faith. And I just believe that they deserve a moment of silence for the courage it takes to enter, no matter what the outcome. But December 7th, in the moment of silence, please.
Thank you very much. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, I'm sure you've sent me the information, but I'm not putting my hands on it right now. Do we have any public comments on items not on the agenda?
Yes, there are two. Ray Blatel and Joey Pass.
Can you please contact them? I'm going to try and get my screen to work right here. Thank you. Thank you, Clerk. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, Ray. 2 minutes for items not on the agenda. Please begin now.
Thank you. Committee chair and committee members. Several weeks ago, the council approved modifications to the city's truck route. Oxnard Boulevard from the 101 freeway to Vineyard and Vineyard from the 101 freeway to Oxnard Boulevard were removed from the city's approved truck route. My question is, when does this restriction become effective? Perhaps during the meeting here today, one of the Public Works employees can answer the question. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
I'll go ahead and call Joey next.
Thank you.
Hi, Joey. You have 2
Hello?
minutes for items. Hi, 2 minutes for items not on the agenda. You can begin now.
Great. Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Joey Uhas-Lekumsky. I am the Executive Director of Bike Ventura, a countywide bicycle advocacy and education organization. 2 weeks ago, I called to highlight some of the pedestrian and bicyclist fatalities that have been occurring in Oxnard earlier this year, and also, the particularly deadly year last year. Chair Perello, mentioned having to look at the facts of each case and kind of throwing his hands up and saying that this was somehow a result of these circumstances in each individual case, and that I took it as to say that there's no sort of systemic issue to be addressed here by the city of Oxnard or by Transportation and Public Works. That day, on November 24th at 6:15 p.m., an 80-year-old man was struck and killed. A pedestrian was struck and killed in his car. 3 days later, on November 27th, another person died from injuries sustained from being struck by an automobile and walking in the city of Oxnard. It's a problem. I mean, if you want to talk about facts, it's much more deadly in the city of Oxnard than, say, the city of Ventura to be someone walking or bicycling on the street. I mean, that's just a fact. And it's something that needs to be addressed. It's something that you as a city can direct your staff to pursue grants to do transportation safety plans. There's money out there from OTS for non-enforcement plans. There's money out there from SCAG for specifically for disadvantaged communities, which Oxnard has, that you can apply for this funding to pursue Vision Zero plans. You can pursue, traffic safety plans. It's a crisis. It's a crisis in Oxnard. Pedestrians and bicyclists are being killed all the time. And it's something that you can take steps to at least try to address. And you can't just say, well, someone didn't have a driver's license, so it's their fault and there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, you can do something about it. Thank you.
Is that the last speaker, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
I would just, Chairman's prerogative, out of line or not out of line. The last speaker's comments, I do take them to heart. I do take it to heart. But again, facts do matter, sir. If we look at the record, some people do something called jaywalking. 6 o'clock at night, it's dark. If I'm correct, the people that were involved in those incidents, the driver stopped. There was not found to be that they were impaired. And some of the individuals that were hit were found to be impaired walking in the street. That does not absolve a community or myself that somebody got killed. It is serious. Every matter, every human being, including yourself, sir, matters. So when a council member makes a comment, it is not this council member, it is not as an attack on you for bringing it to the attention of the public. But again, facts and evidence matter. I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I make a quick comment, please?
Sure.
The earlier speaker, Ms. Littell, referred to the truck route on Oxnard Boulevard, and I will just give a brief comment of Friday. I met the new District 7 Caltrans supervisor. This is the third one in about 6 months, and I have reached out to him to facilitate the removal of the signs on Highway 101 or US 101 designating Oxnard Boulevard as a truck route. And as soon as we get that done, I think Public Works will be moving forward with that issue. So thank you very much for the opportunity to update everyone.
Thank you very much for the information, Councilman McDonald. Appreciate it. Moving on to item D1 on the agenda. Item D1, the subject matter is agreement for landscape maintenance services for various landscape maintenance districts. It appears Mr. Brian Yennis will be making the presentation and ready to go. I beg your pardon.
Chair,
I'll read the recommendation.
Chair, before we move on.
Yes.
First, we didn't do the approval of the minutes, but even prior to that, the public comments. The Public Works Director would like to make a comment, please.
My apologies. Please go ahead. Okay, beg your pardon. Let's do the Public Works Director would like to make a comment. Please go ahead, Ms. Gaglione.
Thank you, Chair Perello. I'm borrowing someone else's microphone here. Just briefly on the truck route issue, we're waiting for Caltrans to confirm that the additional section of Oxnard Boulevard was removed from the truck route map. One of the things that we'll have to wait for is when the Rice overcrossing is completed, Rice Avenue is going to become Highway 1. When that happens, Caltrans will officially detour trucks from Oxnard Boulevard to Highway 1. They have told us that they cannot detour vehicles permanently off of a freeway onto a city street. So the final piece of this and the real elimination from any signs on Caltrans, from Caltrans perspective, is going to happen then. And we of course appreciate any assistance or any help that Councilmember McDonald can bring to bear.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Public Works Director Gaglione. Thank you. And on my fellow committee members, we have a consent item on the agenda, the approval of the minutes. The recommendation of the Public Works and Transportation Committee approved the minutes for November 24th regular meeting as presented. Do we see any need for improvement, corrections, or errors? And if so, please state. And if not, a recommendation, please.
So moved.
Second. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Member Flynn? I'll come back to you. Member McDonald?
Yes.
Chair Perello?
Yes.
Member Flynn?
Aye.
The motion to approve carries 3-0.
Thank you. And thank you for getting me up to speak, to putting me in place here, Madam Clerk. I appreciate it. Moving to reports, agenda item number D1. The subject, agreement for landscape maintenance services for various landscape maintenance districts. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council, number one, there are 3 items in this item. Approve and authorize the mayor to execute agreement A-8245 and negotiated contract authorization with Garcia's Landscape Maintenance Incorporated in the amount of $2,566,062 for a 3-year term ending on December 31st, 2023 for landscape maintenance services with various landscape maintenance districts. Number 2, approve and authorize an additional contract allocation in the amount of $256,606 to be used for any needed increase due to any needed increased level of service in a landscape maintenance district dependent on funding availability. And number 3, authorize the city manager to approve a budget appropriation in the amount of $113,059 from available fund balances from various landscape maintenance districts. And it appears Mr. Brian Yennis may be giving this presentation.
Chair Perello, committee members, Jerry Cooper with Special District Project Manager making the presentation today on behalf of the Special Districts Division. Madam City Clerk, could you please move to page 3 of, thank you. Special Districts Division manages 36 landscape maintenance districts and 1 maintenance assessment district for the city of Oxnard. These landscape maintenance and maintenance assessment districts contain routine maintenance and improvements that add value and enhance aesthetic qualities within these districts. It consists of landscaping improvements, lighting improvements, amenities such as playgrounds, barbecues, tables. All parcels within each of these assessment districts are levied an annual amount of money to cover these landscape maintenance services. And each landscape maintenance district is provided a level of service based on their funding ability. As you may know, we have had many discussions in the past of underfunded landscape maintenance districts. And with those districts, we are entering into community outreach and collaborative governance to talk about moving to a community facilities district to increase their maintenance potential within their neighborhoods. And next slide, please. In September of 2020, the city issued a request for bid for landscape services, and Garcia's Landscaping Maintenance was the lowest bidder. Additionally, they were also the only bidder. The service levels range from a bi-monthly service to a quarterly service, so 4 times per year, dependent on funding. And the total cost of this agreement is $2,566,062, plus an additional contract amount of $256,606 over a 3-year term. That $256,606 will be in support of any district that has additional available funding to increase their level of service. So if we have specific districts that have the ability to move into a higher service level because they convert into a community facilities district, we will still have allocation within this contract to allow us to move them up to a higher service level. You'll see within table 1, it details out the spending plan for the next 3 calendar years or 4 fiscal years, as you will see, for a total of essentially $2.5 million. Some of the districts will require a budget appropriation in the amount of $110,834 for various LMDs, and there will be no impact on the general fund. Michelle, if you could move to table 2, please. Thank you. You'll see within table 2 various spending plans for the districts. Some districts will have service level changes because of the new contract amount based on available funding and an increase in costs for service. Next slide, please, Michelle. And with that, I will take any questions on the landscape maintenance district contract.
A question. I should have asked this at the beginning. Mr. Fisher, or City Attorney, I live in Landscape Maintenance District 13, LMD 13. It's number 6 on table 2, La Village. I need to recuse myself from this item.
It's not my belief that you would need to recuse yourself from an item awarding a contract just because you lived in the district. It's not an allocation of funds, from my understanding. That's all separately done as far as how much you're going to expend in each district. It's just a simple awarding of a contract. I don't see a conflict issue necessarily.
Okay. Thank you very much for that clarification. I appreciate it. I apologize I didn't get to you sooner. I apologize. Doing a lot of apologizing here. Do we have any public comments on this, Madam Clerk?
Yes, there's one.
Please give them.
Oh, yeah, sorry. The woman's name is Noemi, so I'll get her on the line right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Noemi. You have 3 minutes to comment on the landscape maintenance district's item. Please begin now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Go
Yes.
ahead.
Okay, so my concern Okay, I'm hearing that.
Hear you.
Okay, so my only concern about the current landscaper we have is that I've mentioned about not seeing them sometimes. And it seems like, we're being ignored about that when we call in, that, we don't see them for the services. And I don't get a respond when I call about it. And then there was also one time when the area when they came, and then there was a tree that fell out because of the high winds, and then they didn't even take care of it. So I'm just, I don't get this type of service with my current landscaper. They take care of what needs to be taken care of. It's right there. It's the area that you're supposed to service. I don't feel like why, I need to follow up. I need to make sure that they're doing their job. It's just, it's not right. You should be doing your job regardless, if someone's, keeping, an eye on what you're doing or, whatnot. It's the job you're paid to do. It should be done, and it should be done correctly. And we should also get like an update, monthly, if not then quarterly, on what services are being done in our area. That's my concern about the current company.
May I ask a question of you, ma'am?
Yes,
What area or what landscape district are you in?
41
41. Okay.
Pacific Cove.
Okay, Pacific Coast. Try and get an answer for your question. And very good questions. And I do not see that you are wrong in your assertions. In your assumptions about work's got to be done and somebody's supposed to check, and you do your job. Thank you. Thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments, Madam Clerk?
Not for this item, no.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Cooper, I hope you heard the woman's concerns. I imagine that these have been addressed and you take care of them internally, but is there anything we can share with the public or the committee about this particular complaint?
Yes, Chair Perrello. We do landscape maintenance inspections on a regular basis. They are posted on our website. I have spoken to Noemi on a number of occasions with regards to the maintenance out in LMD 41, and each time there is a concern, I do respond to her concerns. Additionally, we do send out the landscape inspector if she has something specific that she has talked about. LMD 41, along with a number of other districts within the city of Oxnard, did have exterior improvements removed due to the general benefit analysis back in 2017. So areas located on Saviors and Wainini Road are being maintained by the General Fund Parks Department. So some education has had to continue with residents in a number of districts, not understanding why those areas are still not being maintained by the assessment district and what is still available to be funded by the assessment district. We have been dealing with some irrigation maintenance issues on one of the entrances in LMD 41, and we are resolving that, as well as within this particular contract, we have allocated some additional funding to hire staff to do replanting projects in a number of the districts that have available funding. And so we do anticipate doing a project within LMD 41 in the special districts areas to help do a little bit more beautification within her district. We also did some tree maintenance this year within her district. So her and I do have regular conversations. And if any resident wants additional information on their particular assessment district, they can visit our website. They can see what inspections have been posted. They can see the maintenance schedule for the landscape maintenance contractor within their district, along with their service level. And if they don't know where, if they are in an assessment district, there is an interactive map where they can put their address in and know if they're in an assessment district or outside of an assessment district. And it will give them the detailed map of what areas within their district are maintained by the assessment district.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that detailed response. Thank you very much. Are there any questions by the committee members? Concerns?
I don't have any.
Okay, Mayor?
Yes, I was sorry about that. I was muted. I do have some concerns, and I believe that over time, these concerns will get resolved. First of all, Jerry Cooper's doing a great job, and I commend her for the work that she's done. I've had these types of issues come up, and then either I've been walking door to door, or I get calls from constituents. And when I call Ms. Cooper to come and meet with a constituent, she does so. And I think it's a tall task to get the message out to these landscape maintenance districts, especially the ones where Ms. Cooper, as she outlined, that this particular one, Pacific Cove, was one of many that became a general purpose area. I will say that, you know, again, the city has a limited capacity. In fact, I want to put this on myself, not Ms. Cooper, not the city manager, not the members of the council. I want to put this on myself. We, no matter what we've done to try to communicate to our constituents about why some of these landscape maintenance districts look the way they do, and why can I say this, members of this committee? Well, I'm on the committee, number one, and number two, I've walked door to door, so I get feedback, you know, directly. No matter what efforts we've undertaken to try to inform them, I'd say the vast majority, this is just an empirical, you know, it's empiricism, or my day-to-day encounters, is that the overwhelming amount of people still, years after these general purpose areas were inherited by the city and by the districts that did not have balances to perform adequate work, the average person on the street still doesn't know. They still don't know what the deal here is. And I think the call by the distinguished lady, the constituent, perhaps is somewhat indicative of that. She's more, Ms. Cooper has more regular contact with her. Ms. Cooper, I know, has gone over this with her. But, you know, and this is where sometimes people have expectations, and I understand why they have their expectations, but they have expectations that, simply put, given the budget cuts that we had and assuming these general purpose areas, these expectations cannot be met unless there's a volunteer group of people that does it, which at many landscape maintenance areas they have done. And I'll say right now, in this most recent election, I'll say that, you know, I encountered that when I walked door to door, and there were a lot of people that were very upset about it. And I'll just say that, as Councilman Perello and Committee Chair Perello quite often says, elections have consequences, and budget cuts have consequences. And I'll just say that in that door-to-door interaction, I know that there's a lot of room, Mr. City Manager. We have to figure out a better way, even though I know we've tried. We have to figure out a better way that this type of information is given to the public. And that's all I have to say about it, Committee Member Perello. I'm excited that we're going forward on this, but elections have consequences, and we just saw some of them. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Your comments are I believe, right on point, Mayor. The young lady that called in and spoke, her concerns, I've heard concerns of that type. And I would just like to take a minute here to state something. There are oftentimes people that will think that somebody else is getting a better deal than someone else, but they don't have all the information, or if given to them, they don't take the time to look at it. Some neighborhood councils delve quite deeply into the facilities districts, the landscaping, the different things like this. We have a tremendous group of people that are volunteering. Mr. Booz and Mr. Mercario, they're involved with people cleaning the streets. And I know that they have been attacked, not physically attacked, but verbally attacked rather viciously on some points, that how come they're cleaning certain areas of the city and not other areas of the city. I have it on very good information, and having seen it myself, they distribute their efforts and their work throughout the city with the people that will volunteer. But it gets back to something that used to take place years ago. People, and I am not the greatest follower of it, people took great pride in where they lived. They took great pride that they lived in the city of Oxnard. They took great pride in whatever they had. They did as good a job as they possibly could with whatever they had. whether it be a home, a car, the place they lived, the shine on their shoes. And some people took that to the point that they were responsible for sweeping the street in front of their house. Not the entire street from the dotted line, but the curb and gutter. I recall when I first got married, 1990, on Ivywood Drive, there was a gentleman that cleaned those curbs and gutters. He took it religiously. Every day the trash truck would come, those things would be swept up and dumped into the trash can. And there used to be a standing joke. He was a former volunteer for the Oxnard Fire Department. And the gentleman told me one time, he says, you know, I clean it, twofold purpose, one benevolent and one extremely selfish. Benevolent, I want the street to look good. Selfish, when that trash truck comes by and picks it up and dumps it in the truck and he dribbles stuff out down on the side of the street, I want it known that street was clean and I'm going to make a phone call about the driver of that truck. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the city is doing what it can with the resources it has and trying to get the information out. I really appreciate the comments from the lady, but even more so, I don't believe that the public has a clue of the hot seat that our employees are on. And Ms. Cooper, this is like being strapped to the back of a wild animal and you're trying to do the very best you can. You're doing a heck of a job, Ms. Cooper. Any other comments by the council?
Chair, may I make one more quick comment? For anybody who's in a land maintenance district that is underfunded, I would encourage them to go to civicmic, CIVICMIC.com. They are our consultant that we are working with for our collaborative governance and community outreach. They can click on City of Oxnard Special Districts Division, sign up for the newsletter with regards to their assessment district, and participate in our community outreach general meeting that we are going to have on December 16th.
What is that date again, Ms. Cooper?
December 16th.
And that would be something that's going to be a Zoom meeting?
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any comments? Would the city manager like to weigh in, or Public Works or like to weigh in? If not, what is the recommendation of the council? The committee?
Move the recommended action.
Second.
Roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Member Flynn,
Aye.
Member McDonald,
Yes.
Chair Perrello.
Yes.
The motion to approve carries 3-0.
Again, Ms. Cooper, thank you very much for the presentation. And the caller, thank you. Moving on to
Mr. Chair,
item number 2. Yes.
I just like to thank Ms. Cooper in particular. She's been really, really good for me to work with. And when it comes to constituent services, and I want to thank her for her outstanding work. She works tirelessly. I don't know how she does it. I know she's a mom. I don't know how she does it. I really don't. I couldn't do what she does. I don't think anybody on our staff could do what she does. I want to thank you, Ms. Cooper, for your outstanding performance.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that.
I echo that also. I hope that among all the calls that you get, I hope that once in a while you get somebody saying thank you, because your work is appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone.
Moving on to item 2. The subject matter, Intelligent Transportation System and the Traffic Signal System Update. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee receive a report on the status and upcoming work for the city's Intelligent Transportation System and Traffic Signal System. It could be Ms. Gaglione or Mr. Bochum giving the report, along with Ms. Aronut, and I'm not sure. So whoever has it, take it away, please.
Thank you, Chairman Perrello.
Welcome.
This is Tim Bochum, and I will be presenting. I think we're on.
Now, Mr. Bochum, you did a tremendous job at the River Ridge Windsor North Neighborhood Council meeting. I want to compliment you personally on that.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. It sounds like we're still having some difficulties with the microphones today. So let me know if you can't hear me at home, and I'll speak up as loud as I can. I
can hear you as if you were right next to me. I can hear you perfectly.
That's great. Thank you very much. Well, Today's presentation really is a report on the status of our traffic signal system and some of the areas that I've gleaned in the short time frame that I've been with the city. I joined the city in late August, and so the attachment to the agenda report really is a document that I prepared, quite honestly, as much for myself as it was for the committee and the public. I've been basically investigating the status of our infrastructure for our traffic signal system, looking at the programs and projects the city is already underway on, and sort of looking at the status and seeing where those are going to take us. But then I've also been talking to various staff members and other entities about where we're going with our signal system. And today's report will be just a brief update on my investigations to date and some of my observations. Today's presentation goes a little bit more in depth in the report. I'll talk a little bit about what ITS is from a fundamental standpoint, just so you know what my thoughts are, as opposed to maybe some of the things that you're thinking about. Talk a little bit about the master plan that was implemented and adopted by the council in 2008. As I mentioned, status of the programs and projects, really some of the challenges that we're looking at in the future about our ITS endeavors. And then just a quick at the end, I want to talk a little bit about where to from here as far as some of the observations of emerging technologies and transportation programs that are out there. ITS, intelligent transportation systems, can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. This is a graphic that is a little bit old and dated, but I sort of thought that it represented the vast array of various things that fall under the fabric and the framework of intelligent transportation systems. You can see that you talk about things such as travel information management, and this slide is so old that it really was done at a time when the public entities gave out a lot of that information. But as most of you know, these days the private market really bears a lot of that market share in getting information out to the motoring public. But it also includes freight management, automatic payment systems, those type of things. Today's presentation, as far as the city, will be talking about that upper left-hand area of traffic management, primarily our traffic signal system and its approach in order to managing traffic and transportation. So just a graphic that sort of shows how things start tying together when you talk about a holistic traffic management system. By no means does this encompass all the things that you try and accomplish, but basically you're trying to tie pieces of your infrastructure together in an intelligent way where they sort of correspond with each other, whether that's bringing in data to our traffic control center that we can use for timing changes out in the field, or whether we can apply that information into our enforcement areas to really deliver additional services and more efficient services to things like our pedestrian, our bicycle modes, and those type of things. So this is sort of the overall idea of what it's all about. And again, this can sort of be expanded or contracted depending on what a city's goals are in trying to accomplish a holistic approach. This sort of reiterates what I talked about, but as specific to us, we're really trying to develop an ITS that assists city staff in doing our day-to-day operations. That primarily results in a couple areas. We're getting information back at our TMC, our Traffic Management Center, that we can use to try and make daily decisions. But we're also getting alerts of things that may be happening in the field, traffic jams, collisions, system failures, those type of things that we can then respond to in a much more efficient and effective manner than you can do if in fact you're not getting that level of information sent back to the central control. This graphic is not one of our graphics, but I felt that it was really sort of tells the story of what a traffic signal system, an intelligent system, is all about. And I'm going to see if this sort of works up in this area. Basically, our traffic signals with the controller and the detection equipment basically takes field information. It sort of applies that to doing our traffic signal control, but then through communications, sends information back to the city hall, our traffic management system that's there, maybe sends information over to our city yard where we might have equipment as far as maintenance efforts. And it does it in a holistic and connected fashion where we're getting back and forth feedback and communications in order to make it all work. As I said, our master plan here at the city was completed and adopted in 2008. It sort of is the framework of how and what we were trying to achieve, at least the vision back then. I'm sure that you all know that 2008 is quite a long ways ago. And so one of the things that I've identified is really our need to update this master plan. And I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the presentation. But just a couple of high level items in that plan. It really tried to establish our roadmap for deployment of our ITS strategies throughout the city. Mostly from a financial investment standpoint, but other things as far as, okay, what kind of commitment should we make along certain lines of that intelligent transportation system graph that I showed early on in the presentation. Roughly about 38 miles of connection, whether it be fiber optic communications or twisted pair copper, recommendations for wireless interconnect into our signal system. And we really implemented this plan in two major deployments, the first being in 2013, where we attacked and addressed about the 140 existing traffic signal locations, getting communication to those locations, doing some controller upgrades, but not all. And then we came back in 2016 as part of the Caltrans relinquishment, and we interconnected 25 additional signals and upgraded equipment in order to bring it into the system. Probably the biggest component of the system beyond the communication lines that are so essential is really bringing the information back to a central location. This is just a photograph of our transportation management center that we have. It's housed currently in our North Service Centers near the Fire Administration Building. And what we get on a daily basis here is information coming in regarding detection that is occurring out in the field. We can monitor our signal timing, check our coordination efforts out there to see if in fact they're coming in or out of communication. And then what some of the capabilities, as I mentioned, is that we can notify staff if in fact we're having issues. We also do some surveillance in this location on the photograph that you're seeing. This is one of our intersections that I'll pull up and do some monitoring during the peak times just to see how congestion is going. This is a good day. I was actually pulling this intersection up when we were doing some of the paving out there just to monitor congestion and see how it's going. But it sort of all ties into a location where we can one-stop shop for our data and our communication. I want to talk a little bit about the projects that we're currently working on. Certainly the city is investing money into trying to keep our system up to date and modernize. That is culminating in some investments that the council has already approved. We're doing some projects such as the battery backup system that's underway. I'll show a couple slides about that. But we're also trying to close some of our fiber optic communication gaps that are out in the field. We are accessing state highway safety money to update and modify our traffic signals. One of the projects that I've identified that we do need to work on sooner rather than later is really addressing some of our pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicle timing updates. There's many corridors that haven't had an update in quite a while. So I'll be spending some time working on that and probably getting some consultant services to focus on that. And then of course, we have an adaptive signal pilot project that we're working on. I'll go into a little bit for the committee. In case you've never seen what's inside a controller, up on the left is both the front and the rear of a traffic signal controller. In the top part here is actually really the brains of the unit. It's the traffic signal controller that tells the intersection what it needs to be done. And the various pieces of equipment down here are things such as the detector cards that the in-ground loops or the video detection actually feeds information into that controller to tell it how many volumes are out there. We also have monitors that are at each intersection to make sure that we don't have conflicting approaches or indications coming up. And so they're all housed in that controller. This controller is actually in fairly good condition. There's quite a few that we have that are older that don't look as clean as this, but I wanted one to sort of show you a controller if you haven't seen one. And then on the right is just really two small examples of the status of some of our locations out there. The top is an electrical service that brings the electricity to our traffic signal. You can see that it's been punished quite a bit by the weather, a lot of rusting there, a lot of gaps that moisture can get into. The photo in the bottom is old conduit that literally has old conductors running through it that are still live, but you can see that you can't really pull new conductors through there. You have to really replace all of that at one time and modernize it. And the good news is the city council has approved about $560,000 a year to invest in modernizing our signals, and we're currently bringing forward projects to do that. The first that is underway, and it's actually under construction right now with a date of completion here this month, is we're upgrading about 31 of our battery backup systems. These batteries are placed at isolated locations so that if we have power failure, or if Southern California Edison decides to give us a brownout or a blackout, these can actually maintain the signal operations depending on if the indications are LED technology. They can run, some of these can run 2 or 3 days depending on the number of phases at an intersection. So this is exciting. It basically ensures that we can stay in some form of operation if those outages should occur. And they run about $7,500, $8,000 a piece to replace. Another area that we're focusing on is completing some of the gaps in our communication. This is just a base slide from our GIS map, but I highlighted a couple areas where signal connection from a fiber or a cable is currently not in place. And to orient you on this, the green lines represent fiber optic that communicates between our signals, and then the purple line represents copper, which is just as good as fiber, except it can't transmit as much as the data as fiber. And so ultimately you would like to upgrade that if you can financially afford it to bring in copper. But we have some areas in the north part of the city that doesn't connect, and some in the south. The good news is we have projects that are completing that. We recently installed a traffic signal at Gary and Rose, and we completed the interconnect down to that location. So we're approaching to the signals to the south. A development project over on Woolley is completing the conduit installation. And then another project will actually extend the conduit and the interconnect over to the harbor area. And then up in the Wagon Wheel area, that project is completing the gap and will connect the fiber optic and the traffic signals north of the 101. There still are a couple of areas that we're going to have to spend some money in the future in order to connect along these corridors, primarily along Harbor and a little bit along Channel Islands, and then south down on Pleasant Valley. We'll have to close these with fiber optic when in fact we have some projects and some funds in order to accomplish that. These, by the way, these locations are currently communicating with us wirelessly, so we're getting information, but it's always good to have hardwire so that we have redundancy and better connectivity. Another exciting project or projects that we have currently on the books, where we've received some state grant funding to address some of our traffic signal locations, mostly that have some safety problems going on. I know the caller that called in during public testimony was concerned about safety. I will mention at this point that we released a request for proposals last week to have a consultant team come in and develop our citywide local road safety plan. And so I'll let that caller know, but basically that plan will upload to staff and the community the areas that we have safety issues. And then that will ultimately allow us to apply for grants, continued grants to do these type of projects. And what are we talking when we're talking about these type of modernization or modifications? How do they differ from a modernization project? Well, we're looking at coming in and basically replacing things like the back plates that may be damaged. You can see in this photo that the back plate on the left turn head is damaged, it's broken. We would come in and replace that. We'd be looking at maybe coloring the back plates if in fact they have deficiencies, and I'll show you a couple photos of that, addressing pole issues, ADA upgrades, installing video detection if we currently have it, really coming in and making the intersections meet more of the standards of today. Here's a couple of other locations of part of that project. I'm sure that most of you have experienced the Oxnard and 5th left turn offset that's out there. Anybody that's tried to make those left turns during a peak time know it's a little bit awkward when the opposing left turn is occupied, particularly by a large profile vehicle. So that project will be installing left turn phasing to improve safety at that location. Up in the right-hand corner, you'll see sort of, we have them all over, but many of the signal backplating have faded. due to sun damage. And so those ideally would be as dark as possible to give contrast, but also today's standards really call for about a 12-inch indication. And those indications are, I think those are 8 inches. So we're quite a bit smaller than what the current recommendations are in some of our locations. And so these projects will help us upgrade to those levels. And then on the bottom right, really just an example of something that some people don't think about, but you may not be able to see it on the computers, but there are 2 single indications, one there on the right hand, one on the left, that are just sort of lost entirely within the background in those locations. These projects will end up bringing those signals up over the roadway in a span arm formation. And when you do that, you have a tendency to start reducing the collisions that may be occurring by people running an intersection because they just don't see the indications as well as they should.
Mr. Bokamp,
Yes.
before you leave that slide, you mentioned the difference between 8 and 12 inches. What are you talking about?
So if you see the diameter of the
Can you use your
indications up
pointer?
there, it's the difference in the diameter of these indications. So the diameter of this is an 8-inch. We want to increase that diameter by 4-inch for each one of these. In essence, the signal head will be larger, and those indications will be larger and be able to show much more contrast with the background so that people pick them up easier.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That'll be a big improvement. Thank you.
Yep. Great question. Just a map showing some of those locations as part of this project. If the public is interested, it's part of the staff report, but they're spread out. These were generated by some collision data information that we had. We'll continue to look at these system-wide in the city. And that local road safety plan that I mentioned, when that's developed, it'll identify more of these high priorities that we can invest in and go out and seek other people's money in order to accomplish. One of the big things that I think we'll see significant benefit from is spending some money and some time retiming our traffic signals in our corridors. I want to bring in and really address some of our pedestrian timing issues that I see in the city, really identifying the appropriate walk times, the clearance time, even consider doing what's called an advanced pedestrian walk. A lot of jurisdictions are doing this where they let the pedestrian actually start before any vehicle indication comes out. And that way the ped is already in the intersection before a car may want to try and do a right turn. That's been shown to be very safe. Safety oriented. And so that's one thing I'd like to get to. But then we also really need to look at the vehicle and bicycle timing at our intersections, make sure minimum greens are set so that people can get through the intersections without stopping. But then also provide appropriate yellow clearance and all red clearances so that we're safe and people aren't entering the intersection. I will tell you my initial impressions with Oxnard is people drive pretty fast in this town. I don't know if that's COVID related or if that's been here for a while, but that's one of the areas that I want to focus on as I look into the traffic safety programs and timing to make sure that we're not encouraging speeding just the way that our streets are set up. As far as the, sort of at the far end of the spectrum of intelligent traffic is really trying to get your systems to be adaptive on a daily basis. The philosophy of adaptive is that your computer system would do the work of a person. They would basically be getting information from the field. It'd be taking your timing programs and stretching them a little bit. So you give a little bit of green or you change your timings a little bit to deal with some of the things that you may encounter over a daily period. It's not a panacea for all approaches or for all issues. I sort of included this slide. I think it's from Washington DOT. But basically that you want to make sure that you're not thinking that this is going to be too much, but it's a good tool when you have streets that are at capacity, or you might have special events that are occurring. It would be neat to have this online now to sort of deal with some of the COVID issues, but we're certainly working towards this on our pilot program. And if you don't know, we're focusing on 2 pilot corridors. One is the Gonzales Avenue. The other is the Rose Avenue. There's 33 signal locations as part of this. And what we'll be doing is we'll be updating various equipment, installing new data information to come in. We've had to break this down into 2 phases because it's sort of a pretty large project to sort of accomplish with where we're at. But it's sort of exciting. So phase 1 is currently underway. In phase one, basically, we're taking our TMC, that's the Transportation Management Center software, and we're upgrading it. We're replacing in essence, the Windows of our traffic signal system is being upgraded to a new version that allows for adaptive signal control. And then what we have to do along those two corridors is we have to actually start swapping out our traffic signal controllers in order to have a more advanced controller. And that's that piece of equipment that's in the middle at each intersection. It's that brain I talked about in the signal cabinet. It needs to basically be swapped out for a more advanced unit. And we're currently working on that. It's under construction right now, and we're hoping to have phase one get complete about the end of January or the start of February. And that would lead to our phase two of that project, which is more aligned with how we collect our information. Probably the primary difference between just a standard corridor control and an adaptive is you need much more data to come in. So whereas an existing system has detection on the intersection approaches, oftentimes you have to have some kind of detection after the intersection so you know how much of your volumes are leaving the intersection and maybe approaching the next one. And so it is data intensive. That means more loops out there. That may mean more video detection, more surveillance needs to come in. And that project will have a request for proposal that I'm currently working on that we hope to release in January to get that portion of the project moving forward. And just a really sort of graphic to sort of show how that works. You basically have a detector loop or series of detector information that's not necessarily part of your intersection control, feeding information to your TMC, or even localized. It's saying, I need a little bit more green time, and then it's dispatching that out. And then it's adjusting all of the signal timing along that corridor as part of an adaptive approach. And that's sort of the philosophy of where we need to get to. It does come at a cost because it means that you have to have more equipment, more communications in order to achieve it. And that does come at a price of additional resource allocations that you generally have to commit in order to keep it fresh and keep it working. So to talk about those issues, you know, it's not just all about equipment. There's other things that you got to keep in mind. I'll give you some of my initial impressions about the state of our traffic signal system, our maintenance efforts, some of our resource, just some really quick snapshot things. Again, I've only been here 3 months, so I'm sort of collecting my own information, and then talk a little bit about those last two at the end. I'm sure you know that traffic signal maintenance and damage is a big issue here in Oxnard. I just asked Phil Schweider for, hey, give me a couple of recent pictures of some damage that you deal with. And you can see here that not only have we had knockdowns for signal poles, that's at the bottom and over to the right, but we've also constantly have contractor damage, and that's a work zone that somebody pulled right through the current conductors at an intersection. The point I'm trying to make here is every time we have a damage at one of our locations, whether it's the interconnect or the signal system itself, it degrades the system. And so even if you were able to splice all those conductors down there in the lower right, the integrity of the system just diminishes. And so you have to have a valid maintenance program to upgrade those and periodically come through and really clean it all up. We also have a lot of call outs on a daily basis. Those are maybe timing issues, signal heads that have been spun. Our maintenance staff spends a lot of time just doing that. The important piece I want to leave you with is when I check the ratio of our signal techs to our current signal system, national standards recommend somewhere between 40 to 60 signals for a signal tech. 40 being in a system that has maybe older, like our system, may have a lot of problems where you have damages like we're talking about. That's the lower end. The 60 would be for a signal system that has high levels of maintenance, constantly getting upgraded. We're well below that. We have 3 full-time techs right now, 165 signals, 1,000 streetlights. One of our techs is generally out on workers' comp. So our techs are busy out there. And that's not ideal if, in fact, we want to get ahead of the curve as opposed to just be reactionary. We also have limitations at our staff in the office, although we've got good news here because, well, I'm here now and I'm hoping to bring some of the A game back to the city to get things done. But with the signal system that we have, particularly going to adaptive, we really should try and strive to have at least one full-time person devoted to our signal system operations and some backup. That usually is a part-time person that's backing up or something along those lines. And when you're talking about really intelligent systems, you're talking about keeping all of our staff, whether it's maintenance or office, schooled, educated. That may mean that we rely a little bit more on contract support than just doing it all in-house. And again, in order to be really present and successful and efficient, you've got to keep things such as data collection and financial money flowing in order to really keep it fresh. As I mentioned, the current master plan is about 12 years old. To sort of date that a little bit, in 2008, we had only had an iPhone for 1 year. The iPhone came around in 2007. A lot of people think they've been here forever. But our current master plan was written a long time ago, and there's a lot of things happening in the field that we should take advantage of. And so I think we should look at spending some money to update our master plan. The really good news is the traffic impact fee program that you updated earlier this year includes some funding in order to do that very thing. And so that may be a request that you see coming forward in the next financial plan that the city recommends in May. And, you know, as I mentioned, new ways of providing service that's occurred between that. On the left-hand upper side here is sort of an old way of doing business. I mean, we do know that Caltrans provides changeable message signs out there. We do a little of it, but, you know, 10 years ago, it was all a public realm. Most of the information that was out in our highway systems was being provided by a Caltrans or a DOT. Even some cities would provide that. But hey, if you look on the right-hand side, I mean, there's not one of us that probably doesn't have a telephone, a cell phone, an intelligent phone that's giving us traveler information on a real-time basis. We don't have to rely solely on us doing that work, but we do have to come up with a plan on how to share that technology. And then the bottom part down there is really things that are moving at such a rapid pace. This is a company that basically does all your data collection for you. They use cell phone information in order to calibrate what's happening out in your field. So they're constantly able to tell you how many cars are on the road, where they're coming to, going from. We don't have to rely solely on our data streams any longer to make that connection. And so those are things that a new master plan can look at. Some of the really exciting things that I think about is it's not just about vehicles. This is an app that allows visually impaired people to download, and some of our pedestrian push buttons that are available now will communicate directly with them. So as they approach a crossing location, they don't even really need to try and find a pedestrian push button. Their phone vibrates and tell them where it is and where the phase is, and they're able to cross the street. These are the things that we want to look at to see if it can make it a better experience for our users. And it can even get to a situation where it takes it a step farther. And there are program apps now that allow modifications when a work zone is out on a street. You basically upload the information of where the closures are, where a detour may be occurring, if a pedestrian connection or a bike connection has been closed. And then those apps basically give feedback right away to whoever's out there using the environment. Again, it's not necessarily a public-only domain any longer. It might be something that a company comes up and does something like this, both altruistically, but maybe for financial situations. So those things are available that I think we really want to take a look at. And then finally, there are just areas that up until COVID, we're going at a very brisk pace, but since COVID, this has slowed a little bit. But really talking about how public agencies interconnect with the future intelligence system that may not necessarily be under the public domain, but might be on the private market. And I'm sure you've all heard various issues of autonomous vehicles or connected vehicles, some of the sharing programs that are out there that hopefully will help deal with congestion levels and possibly lack to private vehicles. The good news is there is still a lot of investment, and I think these programs are continuing to move forward. The downside is that COVID has sort of knocked some a little bit back. So things like, I mean, if we had this meeting a year ago, we'd be probably talking about the issues along the lines of the motor scooters, the electric motor scooters that were out in public right-of-ways and the problems they were having. Well, they've sort of stopped right now because of the COVID issues, but they'll come back. And really what we need to do is figure out if these emerging technologies allow us better utilization of our street right away, what can we reimagine those streets to look like if in fact we don't need 3 lanes on Oxnard Boulevard any longer? We might be able to have better capacity through all of these efforts and allow us to utilize some of those street rights away in a more and better manner, whether that's a bike facility or greenways or something along those lines, or possibly even reversion if in fact that is something that can be done. So those are the things that I sort of see on the horizon and what we'll be looking at. If you have questions, I'm here to answer them. And again, this is a very high level approach. I've only been here a little while, but these are sort of the things that I'm seeing. And I think that I want to work on as we move forward in the future. So with that, I'll just stop with questions and answer anything that you have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bogum. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers on this matter?
Yes, we have one. Pat Brown.
Please go.
Hi, Pat. You have 3 minutes to speak on the traffic system item. Please begin.
Okay. I have noticed, I've been here since 1993, and I've noticed a very gradual uptake in the traffic on Oxnard Boulevard. And during the day, the lights system seems to work fairly well, except for around 4th Street. That one isn't timed to go straight on through. When you get to that one, you can come up to it, come in northbound, but when you get to 4th Street, you have to stop if you've been able to get through the others. I think that's a mistake. We need to retime that. That's for during the day. Also, we've got a lot of problems with the big trucks. And yesterday, I saw a great, big, huge, long truck, one of the longer ones, coming out onto Oxnard Boulevard from 7th Street, coming westbound, makes a right turn, goes up Oxnard Boulevard from 7th to 5th, and then makes a right turn back and goes back east on 5th Street. Well, he can't get through because all the cars that are in the left turn lane are there, and they all have to back up in order for him to to make a right-hand turn. It was a mess, a total mess. We have got to get them to stop doing that. They can go around down on Woolley, up on 5th Street, and back on up on Rose, Woolley to Rose to 5th, and come back in that way. They do not have to come in or out on Oxnard Boulevard, and we have got to get this stopped because this creates, I mean, it was a big mess, and he just barely made it through making his right turn on 7th because his trailer was almost scraping the posts and everything as he did it. I was there on 7th. I was just astonished. But I realize this happens all the time because I see the results of what they leave behind. But we've got to get them to stop and change their tune. And once we get all those great big huge trucks off of the boulevard, then we can figure out what our timing is because they're screwing it all up. There's no way to time it with those big trucks in the way. Thank you.
Any other speakers, Madam Clerk?
No, that's it.
Okay. Council members, do you have any questions, comments, concerns?
I have some comments if there's time.
Go ahead.
Ms. Bokum, thank you so much for that report. I'm really overjoyed to hear this. I can remember about a year ago, I was talking with staff about the intelligent traffic system, and the response I got was, "Oh, it's antiquated technology. Nobody uses this anymore. It's really not any good." And they left it at that. I'm the type of person that I don't mind hearing that something's antiquated or out of date or whatever, but I hope for a follow-up comment along with that saying, here's what we're looking at to try and get this replaced. And this came on board the same year I was elected, 2008, as a response to the traffic initiative. And I'm frustrated that it's 12 years into it and we're still not completed with it yet. And so I know there's a lot of work to be done. I think you're on the right track. I appreciate your efforts. And on a side note, thank you for reaching out to me the other day about quiet zones, because I think that will be a benefit too. But there's a lot of things that go into traffic and traffic flow. And even I forget this sometimes that, when a train comes through town, although the systems are all interrelated, it really tends to mess up the timing sometimes, especially when Amtrak comes through at about 4:28 in the afternoon. And it takes a couple phasings of the signals to get back into the regular rhythm. And I'm also glad to see us looking at smartphone technology. I sit on a couple other transportation boards, both train and ground transportation. And the ones that I'm on, we have gone to smart apps on phones for the bus, for the train, so on and so forth. So I'm glad to see us catching up with the technology. And I can remember the day when some of the traffic boxes on Oxnard Boulevard that were owned by Caltrans, when you look inside them, they were all like washing machine motors and gears and stuff like that, that it was amazing they even ran when they did. So I'm very excited about this. I think you're on the right track. I think it's the right thing to do and the right direction to go. And so certainly if I can offer any support or suggestions, I'd be happy to do so. But thank you so much for an uplifting report. It's so nice to hear someone say that, oh no, there's opportunity here, we can seize it, instead of, well, this stuff's antiquated and out of date. So anyway, those are my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mayor?
Yes, I have a lot to say about this, and I want to thank the staff for being responsive to bring this back to us. Councilman McDonald, Committee Member McDonald, and I have asked for a long time now to have a more comprehensive report on the intelligent traffic system, otherwise known as ITS. So thank you very much. First and foremost, just to confirm what Councilman McDonald and Committee Member McDonald just had to say, that's the most comprehensive report I've ever had on anything to do with traffic. So I want to say to the Assistant City Manager, the Public Works Director, the Assistant Public Works Director, Brian Yanis, and the City Manager and the team, you hired the right person. Now we just got to find out how to keep them here because there's a lot of responsibility, as we can see. So I just like to start first and foremost with what Committee Member McDonald had to say about the traffic initiative. And I won't comment on the traffic initiative, but what specifically was supposed to come out of ITS, and that's where my questions are. And what the Oxnard Traffic Initiative was about was the city published a map. It was kind of like a comprehensive guide, and I'm trying to think of the name right now about what it was called, but it was one of the most visually important and comprehensive guides to a variety of public works projects, I believe, and everything else. And in that city published, and I can't think of what it even is, it was almost like an atlas of the city. It had a map of the intersections throughout the city, and it graded the intersections in terms of whether what grade did the intersection get. And if I'm not mistaken, in the city's general plan, that we had a goal, the goal of the city was to have an overall intersection grade level of C. And let me just explain and remind the committee members that this was about traffic flow and how much time you had to wait at an intersection. So one of the ways to gauge whether you can improve traffic flow, which is the job of a city engineer, is one of the reasons why speed bumps and lumps and humps and stop signs are kind of discouraged because the goal is to keep traffic flowing. And it's very hard to explain to constituents. If you give them that explanation, they shake their head and say, nonsense, I want a speed bump or I want a stop sign. So the question I have for the city's traffic engineer, and I understand it's Mr. Bolcom, is that correct?
That's correct. It's like a K in the middle.
Okay. There's a CH in Germany, the city of Bochum. But anyway, but I wanted to ask you, the immediate goal of the ITS, of the Intelligent Traffic System, was supposed to elevate intersections, especially those that fell below C. The worst intersection in the city was 5 Points. 5 Points had an F. And there were, if I'm not mistaken, because committee member and Chairman Perillo worked on this initiative alongside with me and many, many other volunteers who worked very hard throughout the city. There were like 8 intersections that had a failing grade throughout the city. Mr. Bolcom, my question to you is, given this very comprehensive presentation, which I could probably watch it 10 or 15 times and still have to watch it again because it's so comprehensive. How do we assess whatever we've done in the efficacy of upgrading these intersections from Fs or Ds to the minimum level of C?
Certainly, that is a great question. And I have not seen the documents, the historical documents that you refer to, but I think I can probably take a guess at what they're referring to. And that's sort of the concept, really, there's 2 concepts there. First, if your intersections are out there that are just operating isolated, you're only as good as your detection and the ability to say how many of the cars, how many of the PEDs are coming in at any given time. You can up that game by basically letting intersections either talk to themselves or send the information back to the central control like I'm talking about. And so it can prepare itself in order to sort of do better timing that's out there. When you do coordinated signal efforts, and that's really what the ITS project tried to accomplish, taking our corridors and tying them from the first intersection to the last, or at least timing between major breakpoints, and those breakpoints are major intersection to major intersections. Generally, what you'll find is a couple things. You'll improve your level of service overall on the corridor because you have much less delay. And then at those intersections that are sort of built out, like 5 Points or like some of the other ones that we have in town where you can't widen, you're not going to get any more capacity because you can't widen. Having that additional ability to sort of platoon that traffic through those intersections, you get much more traffic able to come through. And sometimes you may see a full level of service go up. You might go from a level service D to a C, or you might have something, not quite maybe a full level of service, but you'll definitely see reduced delay going through there. And so that's probably what those documents were talking about. And I think that was probably the objective of doing all this. One of the things I will say about Ms. Brown's comments, as well as your own, some of our quarters haven't been retimed in quite a few years. And so if we did nothing else but do those timing changes that I showed in that slide, I think we'll see measured improvements about some of the things that you're concerned about and that she's concerned about.
Thank you very much. I just, a final comment. Thank you for the answer and the response. I think, Mr. City Manager, and to my colleagues on the committee, and to Mr. Yanis, the public, and also the Public Works Director, I would just like to say that there's so many elements of this traffic management, and we saw that from the speaker, Ms. Brown, just talking about kind of like truck traffic, right? So here we're talking about an update on ITS, but it really more is the whole signaling system and the whole traffic management system of the city. I would really like the focus at whatever capital improvements that we need to make or investments we need to make, that the focus is on traffic flow. And I understand that is one of the primary jobs of a traffic engineer, is to make sure that there is the highest, most efficient level of traffic flow. And I'm glad the traffic engineer, Mr. Bolcom, mentioned the word LOS, level of service. That was a word that was missing from my giving an intersection an A grade, a B grade, a C grade, et cetera. It's all about level of service. And I've spoken to many people, including Mr. Prince, who's very involved in various planning issues and suggestions as a member of the community. His perspective is maybe that LOS system is not even adequate to really adequately assess traffic in the city. So I'll end by saying the goal is to improve traffic, to improve getting from point A to point B in the safest, most expeditious manner. And I hope that that continues. Thank you for the presentation. I'm so impressed. And anyway, thank you very much. I'm really excited about it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr.
Thank
Chair,
you.
if I can make one more comment, please.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you. The other day, someone commented that I was in favor of the highest speeds possible throughout the city, and that was supported by the police department. And I disagreed with that statement. And Mr. Bolcom, if I remember traffic engineering correctly, if we have a street that is signalized and the speed limit is 35 miles per hour, that what we do is look for signal timing that would encourage people to drive at 35 miles an hour, meaning that if you drive 40 miles an hour, you don't catch all the green lights. If you drive 25 miles an hour, you don't catch all the green lights. But if you drive 35 miles an hour, if the timing phasing is correct, you would be able to pretty much sail through the city at the approved speed limit. Is that still an accurate statement?
It is, and I know that we're running a little bit behind schedule, but I want to just give you a little anecdotal piece. As I drive the cities and I see people shoot by me either on the right or left-hand side that are going well beyond the speed limit, when I pull up to them at the next intersection that's a red light and sort of look over it and give them a wink, it's because I know that our platooning there is set at the speed limit. So it really doesn't matter if you feel like you're making time on many of our streets, because you're probably going to get stopped at the next light. So yes, the most prudent path is to drive the speed limits on our corridors or major corridors, because you'll go through platooning wise more efficiently.
Thank you. That was the point of my comment, is that if we could get the message out to folks that our system is designed that if you drive the speed limit, you will most efficiently drive through the city of Oxnard. It's not about, the rabbit and the hare type of thing, peeling out the intersection to make the next signal. It's just not going to work. So thank you very much for that comment.
Thank you. Good follow-up question too. Mr. Bolcom, very good presentation. I want to echo, I believe I can speak for the other two members. This is the best presentation I've seen on this matter, on this subject matter. Really impressive. It will be a matter of implementing some of these things, and I understand that. Your comment about fast drivers, I agree. Sometimes I'm one of those fast drivers, but I do agree. And the comments that Mr. McDonald, Councilmember McDonald made, absolutely right. If you follow at a certain time, flow with traffic, flow. I'd like to address a couple of comments that the public speaker mentioned. And it's something that I've thought of in a long time. And when I first got on the council, I was asked to meet with some people, some of them from some of the major packing facilities, Boscovich specifically. There was a concern that possibly there would be some sort of a location, a centralized location for trucks. And usually these are long haul, hauling produce back east. And when they get into our core district, our commercial area, which is part of Ms. Pat Brown's neighborhood council area, they don't have a place to park and they get stuck in a loop, and then they impact our streets as she described. I wish that there had been something put together where there was a central, shall we say, a truck stop, which could take care of these things. Because as it was approached to me, there were people that when they asked me to attend this meeting, this is when I first got on the council, they were addressing the city of Salinas, California, Monterey County. And apparently in Salinas, California, it is such a bad situation that the trucks position themselves in Coalinga on Interstate 5, waiting for the call to tell them, start coming this way, we've got a spot for you. Maybe if agriculture still stays in the community, which I hope it does, and the businesses still pick up with the shipping, maybe we will look into something like that. But as the Public Works Director, Ms. Gaglione, stated, there is a timetable for being able to get the big trucks off, the heavier vehicles off Oxnard Boulevard. We're not there yet. Some of the comments you made were terrific. I mean, bring the city up to the A game. That's going to be great. We can do that. You've been very impressive. This is the second time I've seen you make a presentation. I want to compliment the staff, all the city staff. That pointer that was used where you can highlight what we're looking at makes a big difference for a member looking at a picture. And I imagine it makes a big difference for a member looking at a television when they have an opportunity to see this member of the public. I support this. The question when you had on slide 15, there was a area that we talked about the connectivity in the harbor, and they were mentioning. I know I'm getting a lot of questions from an area of slide 15 that has to do with internet, that apparently the internet is in that area is in some of the, and I don't know if I'm not up to speed on that, but in the area that's in my district, which is Oxnard Shores, the Mandalay Bay, that the internet is the weakest it is throughout the city. Will any of this have to do with the fiber optics improving the internet capabilities in these areas? That's a question.
Chairman Perillo, I don't have an answer for you right now, but we can investigate that. This interconnect that we'll be extending to first to Harbor and then up and down is primarily for public communication for us, maybe our IT. But I also know our IT department is working on fiber optic extensions into the community. So maybe we can get some information back to you on that particular issue.
And thank you very much for that answer. And I do know that there is something going on in the South Bank neighborhood. It's been going on for several days. It appears something with that type of thing. Your points about the streetlights, improving the signage, the streetlights, the pictures of the, and you were very, very pleasant. The punished by the weather, the salt getting that thing, and the still live connectors. There are issues in the city of Oxnard that have been pointed out in the past, and this apparently is the power company, the light company, Edison company, responsibility, that there are issues, and I appreciated you pointing them out. You're grabbing the bull by the horns here, man, and hang on. The other question that comes up in my mind with, say, the member of the public that spoke at the very beginning of the meeting, any loss of life is tragic. Any loss of life is tragic, especially to those directly involved. One of the things in the city of Oxnard, in my opinion, and it's simply my untrained, specific in this area, is that there is a difference in the illumination of streetlights throughout the city of Oxnard. Is there anything that you're looking at with respect to your position in the city of Oxnard and the illumination of the streetlights to bring them into line so one side of the city doesn't have better, one side of the city cannot say that the other side is getting better streetlights, quality of streetlights?
Chairman Perillo, right now we do not, as far as I know, we do not have a holistic program for upgrading our streetlights within the city. We attack it on a location by location basis. Many times if a development is coming in, we will attempt to condition those developments for doing perimeter upgrades. That's one of the areas as we develop this local road safety plan, we'll be able to give us some guidance on what we should do there to illuminate our streets a little bit better. And one of the things that you do is you set up a citywide standard for something like that and not necessarily a neighbor by neighborhood type approach. And so we would treat all the areas the same and would be recommending fiscal investments along those ways too.
Thank you very much. And I believe the last question I'll have here is, when you mentioned synchronizing the lights and working with the police department, you guys are working hand in hand. This is there any issue with who's the boss in these collaborative agreements to try to make the traffic flow better through the city of Oxnard? No.
Oxnard actually has a good team working on these areas. The one thing that I will tell you is that COVID and our response has had a dramatic effect on the ability to communicate and do field work together, those type of things. So there is an impact associated with just not being able to do it the way that we used to. But there are definitely areas that I think we all can improve upon. The caller that called in earlier talking about last year's fatalities, you have to recognize the reality that that's what occurred. We have to address that. And our working relationship with PD has been great. Haven't seen any problems so far at the city with that. And I would imagine that'll continue as we have the new police chief and we move forward.
That's great. That's very good to hear. And again, I'm very impressed with your presentation and that you've come on board with our city. The city, as the mayor did state, I was involved in the traffic initiative, and the traffic initiative, one of the main reasons that it was as successful as it was is getting citizen involvement. It did not pass at the polls, but tremendous support from the public was that there were, as the mayor has identified, certain areas where the traffic was heavily impacted. And anything to make it better so that people can get back and forth through our city and not have to attempt to race to the next stoplight, because Councilmember McDonald, yourself, Mayor Flynn have all addressed it. There's not much point. You just wear out the brakes, spend a lot of money on gas and brakes. So thank you very much for this presentation. Any final comments or direction from the council? If not, I'll move the recommended action. Do we have a second?
Just receive and file.
Okay. Okay, receive and file. No need for, okay, all right. Moving on to the next item. 3, agreement for rental purchase and laundry services for city uniforms. The recommendation that the City Public Works and Transportation Committee recommends the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute agreement A-8263 with UniFirst Corporation in the amount not to exceed $670,000 for a 3-year term ending July 31st, 2024 for uniform rental, purchase, and laundry services for various city departments. We have Ms. Gaglion and could be Brian Yennis or Mr. Tenenji on this. I don't know who, but go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Chair, committee members. Brian Yan is Assistant Public Works Director for
Good afternoon.
providing this presentation. Hello, everyone. Please proceed to page 3. Public Works Department provides uniforms for 345 employees from divisions: environmental resources, water, wastewater, street maintenance, parks, facility maintenance, fleet services. Each division's uniform varies depending on the job duties. Next slide. Per union MOUs, unions are provided to IUOE, SEIU, and along with uniforms, we also utilize the services for shop towels, rags, and these items are laundered on a weekly basis. The agreement also includes uniform purchases and floor mat rentals. The floor mats are provided at fire stations and fire administration buildings. Next slide, please. August 25th, a request for bids was put out. These bids closed on September 25th. UniFirst Corporation was selected as the lowest and most responsible bidder. Staff has confirmed that UniFirst meets all required city contractual provisions. UniFirst has been providing these services for the past 3 years. Next slide, please. These are the bid results, and UniFirst was the lowest responsible bidder. Next slide, please. This is a 3-year agreement for $670,000. The spending plan for fiscal year 2021 is 5 months, is $93,000. And for the next 2 fiscal years, it's going to be $223,000. The next spending varies from each fiscal year due to factors such as personnel vacancies and service level changes. Next slide, please. This is the spending plan. All the divisions have the appropriate funding to have these services through this fiscal year and the next 2 fiscal years. That concludes my presentation. I'm here for any questions.
Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments on this?
No, we don't.
Board member, committee members, do you have any comments or concerns?
I don't have any.
I have no comments, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I just have one comment. Mr. Yanis, in this, I'm in support of this, but is there feedback from the unions with respect to, are they satisfied with the products that we're providing them with?
We've made alterations throughout the years or during operations, depending on, you know, the fit of some of the shirts or pants. So we've made adjustments, and UniFirst has been providing this service for the past 3 years, and this contract will extend it for another 3 years. So we'll continue to meet the needs of our employees as best we can.
Thank you very much. And the reason I asked that question, at one time I was in a situation where I received uniforms, and they were the guys that won the bid, but they were not the comfortable. And for men in the room, the stitching was done with nylon. It was the equivalent of fishing yarn, and all the stubs, the sticky parts, were always inside the uniform. So you had spots in your body that were rubbed raw. And if you pulled them out, the tags came off and various other things. Eventually they changed, but that's why I asked the question. The recommendation from the council?
Move the recommended action.
Second.
Okay. McDonald, Flynn, roll call, Madam Chair, please. Madam Clerk.
Member Flynn,
Aye.
Member McDonald,
Yes.
Chair Perrello.
Yes.
The motion to approve carries 3-0.
Okay, moving to the last item. Any suggestions for future items on the agenda?
None for me.
Okay, Councilmember Flynn?
I have no future items, and even if I did, I wouldn't be around to hear them.
Well, you can always listen in, you know?
That's right. Your
suggestions do not fall always on deaf ear, let me tell you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't have any this time. I would like to thank the committee members. It's been a pleasure serving with the committee members this year, and I don't know what happens in the future with respect to who's on what. Same thing with the finance and governance, and I would like to thank the clerk, the Oxnard City Clerk, for the services she's provided. And with that, I wish everybody stay safe. For Christ's sake, stay safe. The city of Oxnard, there's a lot of people that it's not a good situation. Please stay safe.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
And I'd like to, given this is my last Public Works Committee meeting, I'd like to thank you for your leadership as the chair. And I think the city has benefited from your passion about public works, and also the membership of Committee Member McDonald with his depth of knowledge and experience. This city has really benefited from both of you, and I've really enjoyed serving with you on this committee. And Mr. Chair, one of the greatest benefits, though, that I would say about serving with both of you, but you in particular as the chair, is that you could now understand a little bit better what it's like to run a meeting. So I think it was one of the greatest things in the world that you became the chair of a committee. And I think, again, it just gives you a lot more experience, and you understand more about what it takes to run a meeting. And it's not easy. It's not easy to run a meeting, but thank you to both of you, and thank you to the Public Works staff. Thank you to the Public Works Director. She's outstanding. The Assistant Public Works Director, all of them are outstanding. I've really enjoyed working with all of you.
Your comment is taken to heart. I can recall plenty of times getting very frustrated with how the meeting, a council was, and then when you sit here and it's like turned on you, it's like, boy, you keep stumbling and fumbling and you're falling down. And I appreciate that comment, Mayor. And to the entire staff of Public Works, thank you very much. A lot of people in the city of Oxnard have no idea what you guys do, and yet every day people get up, they drive to work. Maybe they have to stay home because they don't have a job at the present time. But the city is in good hands with the people that are working here. We're striving to get it better and better and better, and you're doing a hell of a job. I will speak for the two other members of this committee. We're very appreciative of your work. Have a good holiday. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all.